Once again, welcome. And if you're joining us for the first time, also welcome. With cognates in Dutch and German, we are welcome into this moment. See if that's actually true for you. In a sense, we're welcoming each other. We're welcoming ourselves. When we drop in, when we align ourselves with this timeless moment, when we arrange some time by the clock every day or multiple times a day from the moment we wake up, perhaps to take a stand in our lives, whether it's lying down or taking our seat, and understanding what's really involved in taking your seat and aligning yourself with what's deepest and best in yourself, your true nature, before all the mumbo jumble and jumble of thinking arises, and we are of two minds about this or 100 minds about this and that, and get a bit carried away in the conceptual. Not that that's not incredibly important, but right now in this moment, can we simply hold the entirety of our being in awareness, grounded, anchored in the body, and the nobility and beauty in the intentional but not artificial carriage of the body, erect, dignified, in whatever posture we're assuming, and simply dropping right into pure awareness. As we've been playing with for months now, that awareness could be anchored in an object of attention, the breath sensations in the body, or basically anything else, hearing, seeing, smelling, tasting, touching, proprioception, interoception, the knowing of awareness itself, awareness sing. Completely present in this timeless moment, with no agenda whatsoever other than to rest in the recognition of life unfolding, receiving through all of the range of sense doors, including awareness itself. And reminding yourself whenever it's important to do that it's never about the objects of attention, it's about the attending itself and the awareness that arises out of this love affair of simply letting the world appear, arise, be met as it comes to our door in whatever forms, including our thoughts and memories and anxieties and commitments. And then no agenda whatsoever other than to let life unfold and get out of our own way, so to speak. Doesn't at all mean detachment. If anybody ever translates this to be detached from anything at all, that's not what it means. It means non-attachment. It doesn't mean that you don't have profound ethical ground in terms of conduct, how you interface with the world, inwardly, outwardly. Surrendering your beauty or integrity for gain of any kind, for a self that's really questionable in terms of its true existence. And so with that kind of prelude, just resting in awareness, all of us together, all of us whole, WHOLE. No matter what's wrong with us, if we think that there's anything wrong with us or we're suffering from something or other, and almost all of us are suffering with something or other, but a wholeness that is untouched by that, as long as you're breathing. Simply here, awake. Already complete. No place to go. Nothing to do. Nothing to attain. I hope by now you realize that I'm saying those things so that you'll never forget them. And they will say themselves to you, and you can't really claim that it's you that's saying it. And certainly don't claim that it's me that's saying it. It's not even me that's saying it now. This is something that's so ancient. Prajnaparamita wisdom, straight out of the Heart Sutra, Mahayana Dharma. But its relevance is totally universal. And when we live our way into that spaciousness of heart, there are no labels whatsoever. There's no self or other. There's no story or history, narrative. So bathing in this boundless spaciousness that is our awareness, all of us together, each one of us whole, and part of an infinitely large universes, nested universes of wholeness. Just this. Just this. Where is your mind right in this moment? Is it lost in thought? If it is, how is that known? And you'll notice I'm not saying who knows that, because we don't want to reify a knower, a meditator, a breather. What's unfolding is so much more interesting than that. How is it in the heart, right in this moment? Which, of course, I'm not really differentiating from mind in any fundamental way, but still, in terms of Western languages, you'll get exactly what I mean underneath the thinking and the words. How is it? How is it in the body, right in this moment? And how is that known? And how is that manifested moment by moment by moment by moment by moment? And breath by breath by breath by breath by breath by breath. Right in this moment, is it possible to recognize to be the knowing that awareness? I'm not going to say your awareness for obvious reasons, but that awareness already is and always has been, and transcends any kind of self-related narrative, and in that sense provides a whole new hidden dimension of reality that's trustworthy, reliable, orthogonal, and an abode, a refuge, if you like, or a way of being in relationship with all the other dimensions of experience. That transcends ignorance, at least for the moment, transcends selfing, greed, othering, aversion. It's all right here in this timeless moment. We call now. And now. And now. And it's always like this. Just like this. So playing with this transition that's not really a transition, but if your eyes have been closed, whenever it feels appropriate, inviting them to open and being aware of everything that's involved in even something as simple as the eyes opening, the eyelids rising, the world coming to you through these miraculous organs that are actually extensions of the brain, peering out into the world beyond the bones and the skin, receiving. And if one were to look inside my eyeballs or your eyeballs, at the retina, what we'd see would be upside down images, two of them, one in each eyeball. Upside down images of whatever it is that we're looking at right now, say the screen, to my face. And then what goes on in these 86 billion neurons and hundreds, thousands of trillions of synaptic connections with the occipital cortex and everything else that's involved in actually going from those two-dimensional upside down images on the back of our retinas to the world beyond our screen, beyond our device, the world that is as much in here as it is out there. So even the separation of inner and outer, it's like we don't have a good way to language this, but it's not fundamental. We're in the world's in us, we're drinking in the world, and it's helpful to keep that in mind somehow. It's humbling. And it's not forever. So can we appreciate what it is that we have while we have it? And again, I didn't ring any bells to start. I'm not ringing any bells now. Just kind of a reminder. It's been one of the many threads or themes through our entire time together that there's no end to the meditation practice. And it's got nothing to do with me talking or my face on some screen, no matter where the screen is on the planet. This interface is really hard to wrap our minds around and grok, profoundly realize what is actually unfolding. In the same way as grokking anything in life, apprehending a child, your children, if you have children, no matter how little or no matter how big, or whatever challenges we're facing, whatever pain we're carrying, and whatever confusion. We've been using the word uncertainty. I don't think I've used the word confusion once, but this is a very confusing time. Why not put the welcome mat out for confusion and recognize it when, and then we can always ask ourselves, is the you that is aware that you're confused? In the same way as we've been asking, is the you that is experiencing anxiety or uncertainty, anxious or uncertain or frightened or whatever? And that's where this hidden dimension, which is not so hidden to us because we've been cultivating access to it and it's been ours all along, really comes in. And just to remind you, and I may say a few things about this in the coming weeks, and I know there are neuroscientists that are part of this community because I'm getting emails from a few of them, that this non-doing actually transforms our biology on levels that it will take us hundreds of years to actually understand. Just as we still don't understand vision just because we know about the upside down images on the backs of our retinas and how that all comes together. So very important to kind of remind yourself that you really are a miraculous being. There are no exceptions here. We're talking about the living. I don't have that good a track record with the dead, and I'm not that interested in it. I'm interested in the question of whether there's life before death, or whether we're just zoning along on autopilot, drop into our grave, whether it's premature or at a ripe old age, but maybe missed or misapprehended what was gifted to us. So I'm going to, in this little piece of it, sorry, I won't do what I just thought in my mind I would do. At some point, I'm going to share a poem with you from the great Japanese Zen master poet Ryokan of the 18th century. That is the source of when I say in the guided meditations, just this. Those are the last lines of a poem that at some point, unfortunately, I cannot say in Japanese. I know there are Japanese people who are part of our Sangha, but can't say it in Japanese. But I will recite that poem at some point. But I thought before we go into our dialoguing that I'll just say that after some considerable degree of reflection and conversation with Soren and with Jon, that we're thinking that it's time to bring this particular phase of this mitigation retreat to actually to a close. And I thought we'd give it another 2 weeks. So we'll actually close it out. The last day will be Friday, June 26th. Of course, bring awareness to how you're feeling when you say that. I'm bringing awareness to how I'm feeling about it. I never want this to end. But there's a certain degree of impracticality to that, just given my own life and commitments and family and everything else. And I'm sure that that's also true for you. And this started out as a mitigation retreat with no end because we didn't know how long it would take for us to be all doing the bodhisattva thing of not getting out there and possibly infecting other people and flattening the curve on the advice of all the public health people and epidemiologists and so forth. Now we're in a whole other phase, and then the world is also inflamed in ways that are really, in some sense, horrible and wonderful at the same time, but had completely unpredictable that this would happen. I'm talking about my own country now, but where the potential for wakefulness in the domain of social justice and racism in our country, and is an infinite history of mayhem, genocide, and racism that's actually built the United States of America and gave it its wealth, stolen the natural wealth, the industrial wealth, the cotton industry, everything else. So there's all this stuff arising that is so much the curriculum of this moment for us, not Americans, humans. In every single country, no matter where you are, whatever time zone you're in. And all retreats come to an end in a conventional sense. But a real retreat never comes to an end. Life is the retreat, just the same way as life is the practice. And so from that point of view, I have no idea what's going to be unfolding or how this genius community is going to evolve, mature, develop, connect, offer, gift to the world. Whatever energies have been realized, mobilized, marinated, meditated, here. Having seen what arose around June 5th, and in terms of the map and the outpouring of love and affection just for one person, and knowing that the map demonstrates that this is completely a manifestation of our interconnectivity, and that it's not about Jon Kabat-Zinn or one person, but about all of us in some sense, taking responsibility as Homo sapiens sapiens for what the actual meaning of that name that Linnaeus, the great Swedish scientist, offered us, which I think we need to live our way into far more than we need to adopt Homo Deus. Homo Deus is very, very dangerous. We need Homo sapiens sapiens, the species that is aware and is aware that it's aware. We need that big time before we give up what it means to be really human. Maybe we should live our way into it. And that's where the not knowing mind really comes in. And that's where the boundless heart, not separate from the not knowing mind, comes into it. So there is not going to be any end to what we have been tasting here, luxuriating in here, supporting each other with here. But it will end in a conventional sense on June 26th. And maybe there will be a renaissance of sorts through who knows what, but maybe the map and what the community is developing, has developed. And I trust that genius of every single person here live now and every single person, and there are thousands more that seem to tune in pretty much every day or every week to, in some sense, download us into them. We don't even have a language for understanding what this is, but it is profound. And that's forever. That's beyond life and death. And my guess is that all sorts of things will emerge from this in the future, but I think it's really important not to cling to what we have had and try to force it to be something because we depend on it. But in fact, even though we may depend on it, and I depend on it too, I mean, I couldn't love this more. If I didn't love it, I have been long gone. But because there may be that sense of like possible dependency, that may be just one of an infinite number of other reasons to sort of not cling, but listen very, very deeply to what is called for now as our real retreat, which is not anymore a mitigation retreat, but the retreat that is none other than life itself. That's forever in the sense that it's multi-generational, just like democracy. It's continuing to find its way into its own because we've barely gotten started on this planet. And the stakes are unbelievably high, as we've been emphasizing, in terms of COVID, in terms of the next pandemic, in terms of global warming, in terms of racism, in terms of baked in economic injustice that is no longer really viable, tolerable, or sustainable even, or beneficial even for the people that maximally benefit from it, because the world is calling for something else that only we can provide, and it's going to come from here. It's going to come from embodied heartfulness, compassion, wisdom, ethics, intentionality, love, nothing other than practice, mindfulness. So let me just say, excuse me, that in the next, say, this will be the end tomorrow of the 11th week. So then we'll have week 12 and then we'll have 13. Okay. A very lucky number. Okay. Because it's a prime number. And that's just for now. Then the summer will come and things will change and who knows what will appear, whether in the fall or the winter or, who knows, or maintain over the summer, but not with us. We're just keeping don't know mind. But for these next 2 weeks, let's practice in exactly the way we've been practicing from day one, as if our very, very lives depended on it. And drinking in each other, embodying what this practice is, getting out of our heads even the kind of explanatory narratives that about how great mindfulness is, and starting to sell it like sliced bread or something, or baguettes, depending on what country you live in. And in that sense, between now and when this retreat will end on at whatever hour it is in your time zone on June 26th. I don't know if you're aware of it, but to a first approximation, there are an infinite number of moments between now and then. And let's make maximal use of them. Let's practice as if there were no tomorrow. Let's remember that practice isn't a rehearsal for some performance at some later date. That may be true if you're a concert pianist, like Harriet, or a concert cellist, like Barbara Bogatin, who, my friend from the San Francisco Symphony Orchestra, who connected with Harriet after she said that and Barbara heard it. Here, life is the performance. And you know what? When you're not a professional musician or a professional meditator, it's okay if you don't get the fingering just right. If you blow a note here or there. This is an unbelievably forgiving practice. It's not a performance. We don't use the word practice like we're practicing as a rehearsal for some other time when mindfulness will be really important and the stakes will be really high, and then we'll step in. There is no then, there's only now. And good enough is good enough. It doesn't have to be perfect. If you're playing Bach, yeah, it has to be perfect. And even then, maybe the perfection is only in the imperfection. I don't know enough about music to know how that works at that level of, sort of mastery. But our koan for the moment is what would be good enough for now. And I would say, whatever we can really offer, straight from our own heart. So I've said a lot. I know this is a lot to take in. I know it's a lot to digest. And it's also like not fair in a way, because I'd like to have like enough time for all 1,000 of us on this, or 1,500 or how many people, to actually respond, say things. Of course, you can do that in the chat, and you can do that on WhatsApp or whatever, and in communicating in the various ways that Tomas and other people have created for us, in terms of like platforms, or will create in the future. But for now, let's, Soren, do you have anything you'd like to add to what I just said in terms of this whole glide path to June 26th?
Well, one, I think you expressed it beautifully. And I think one of the magics of this community and magics of this experience was that it just emerged naturally. There was no plan that said we're going to spend 3 months or whatever to kind of make this happen. And that there was this magic that brought this community together, and that magic doesn't end. The fact that we're not showing up at the same time, at the same day. And I just want to express huge appreciation to you, Jon Kabat-Zinn, for what you've been able to contribute. And I know you don't feel like you need more thanks. You've got enough thanks, but we're here in large part because you hold a container that we can all be ourselves in. And I think part of the opportunity that we have now is to use all the nurturing and all the sustenance that we have kind of been able to experience. And as you said, make that real in the world in whatever way that we want to make real into the world. And then if it makes sense to come back together again in some kind of continuous way, we can do that. But I think your teachings are so valuable and so important, and they don't shift because the form shifts. And so I think I speak for everybody in one saying how appreciative we are, and how I really see this as the next unfolding of life. that we have some time together, we go out, and if we need to come back together again. And there will be some suggestions we make, like maybe there's a monthly small group calls that we join, connection things. There's a place to go and share and bring ideas. So we'll create just a little bit of ways for people to communicate. But again, I think for Jon and I, it's also just a matter of stepping back and the pause. It's like every great music has pause. You know, every great music has the sound, and then there's the stopping. And trusting all your beauty and all your intelligence and all your genius to know how we want to unfold into this next phase. So that's all I got to say. And really, again, excited to have danced with you. And I see the dance just continuing. And like every dance, a song ends and you wait and see what song appears next. So I think that's about it for now, Jon. But yeah, appreciate
Well, I just say in response to everybody that you can see why Soren and I work together. You know,
yeah, we
I so appreciate your heart,
thank you.
who you are, Soren. And although I do the lion's share of the talking, it's so obvious that
I feed you notes and behind the scenes, right?
Exactly. I'm getting all my lines from him. The way you hold this space is actually the yin of the yang, you know, in terms of just the, you know, talking about silence after a while, like, you know, so embodied love, caring. We don't have to open our mouths. And Soren, you just hold the space and provide for us all as the community in a way that's just beyond words. And I'm sure we'll have plenty more words in the
Yeah.
coming weeks about it. And let's agree that we will do this in a way that is as non-attached as possible, so that we're not just making one more story about these 3+ months. Will then become a nice, happy memory that will imprison us in something.
If only we had that again. Yeah.
Exactly. But the real, whatever this is, there's no stopping it. There's no end to it.
Yeah. And I think one of the things, Jon, you've spoken quite a bit about is the fact that we need all of us on board, you know, Spaceship Earth right now to bring forth the whatever level of compassion, wisdom, mindfulness we can bring, and that the world is in a crisis and inflammation on various fronts. And that the way forward is for us to go both internally and also know what needs to be responded to externally. And so I feel like the community that we have here, I've been blown away by the quality of heart and the quality of care and the quality of insight that, and I don't even know how most of these people found out about this. Like people randomly, you know, just cruising through YouTube, like somehow it got suggested. So, so I think both Jon and I, and all of us, you know, the quality of the people that have shown up here in some magical way has really just been just awesome. And I think part of the stopping is also giving space for that awesomeness to kind of see where it wants to go.
Yeah. And the other thing that I'll say, because I've experienced it is true, is that what you're referring to, Soren, is the quality of us as a community.
Mm-hmm.
All human beings are like this.
Mm-hmm.
We're all like this.
Mm-hmm.
Millions of people couldn't possibly be on this, even if they wanted to be,
Mm-hmm.
because of conditions, causes and conditions. Okay.
Yeah.
And millions of people aren't old enough or aren't quite ready. But that's where every single one of us comes in. Mindfulness is also a pandemic. If it's authentic,
Mm.
if it's not about us and them or me.
Mm-hmm.
This has a kind of communicable healing realization power to it that is as ununderstandable as what's gone on here in the past 11 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll just say it. You're used to my saying things like this. I love that. That
Mm-hmm.
gives me enormous hope for the future in the face of all sorts of dark energies that are extremely toxic and that don't just live in those people that we're going to, point to as the whatevers. But greed, hatred, and delusion is you kind of part and parcel of humanity. The challenge is how are we going to be in wise relationship to those impulses in ourselves, and then engage in the true work of learning, growing, healing, and transformation. And we all know that. So I'm not saying something that I haven't said a million times before and that you don't already know, but kind of just reminding ourselves of
Yeah.
this in a very, 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 very challenging time. So
Yeah.
you may feel like, oh, this is the worst time for us to end this uh, in 2 weeks. Of course, we have no idea what will happen the next 2 weeks. It could, I mean, who knows what will happen? And there you go. Exactly. Exactly. Who knows? What a great koan.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we're close to 3 o'clock. I want to just because of the conversation with Yasmin yesterday, and I'd mentioned this book by David Treleaven. I just got it off the bookshelf. Trauma sensitive mindfulness. Okay, it's beautifully written. I mean, it's beautifully not just written. It's comes from a very, very deep place of recognition of, as Yasmin put it yesterday, big T trauma and little t trauma, and the social interface that sometimes is responsible for that trauma or doesn't know how to hold trauma. So it's a really profound resource that I think is beneficial to everybody.
And John, did you want to read the Ryokan poem today, or is that for another time? I wasn't quite
I thought
sure.
I'd leave that for another time, but since we
Yeah.
have a few moments, I mean, these things just come of their own. So why don't I recite it now? And I'll just give a little background on Ryokan. Um, Ryokan was an 18th century Japanese Zen master. Uh, there were all sorts of Zen masters in the Chinese, Korean, Japanese traditions. Some of them were like heads of monasteries and taught lots of people. Others were like more like wild hermits and just kind of did their own thing. Some were phenomenal artists, painters, uh, staggeringly profound poets. Ryokan, he was kind of like what I guess people would call a bum. He just lived on the outskirts of a town. He lived in the forest in a hut. He begged for food in the village square. Uh, he wrote poems. Now, I'm not being Japanese, I don't know this, but I'm guessing that all of the most famous figures of 18th century Japan when Ryokan was alive, all of those famous people, nobody knows who they are, even if they're students of Japanese history. Everybody in Japan knows who Ryokan was, this bum that didn't do anything except live in in poverty, in a hut, write poems, meditate, and beg for food, as is the custom among certain traditions in Thailand, in Burma, all sorts of places in Southeast Asia. But so he used to go into the village and beg for food every day. And I think he found it easiest to relate to the kids. So he would play on the village green with the kids. And this is background to the poem because he's talking about games that he's engaging in with the kids in his tattered monk's robes. So first we braid grasses and play tug of war. Then we take turns keeping a kickball in the air. I kick the ball and they sing. They kick the ball and I sing. Time is forgotten. The hours fly. People stop and stare. Why are you acting like such a fool? I could say something, but why? Do you want to know what is in my heart? From the beginning of time, just this, just this. Do you want to hear it again? Wave your nod your heads. I can't see too many people.
Yes.
Okay. It's always good actually to hear poems more than once because the first time is kind of just like tuning the instrument, so to speak, for receiving. First, we braid grasses and play tug of war. Then we take turns keeping a kickball in the air. I kick the ball and they sing. They kick the ball and I sing. Time is forgotten. The hours fly. People stop and stare. Why are you acting like such a fool? I could say something, but why? Do you want to know what's in my heart? From the beginning of time, just this, just this. So I think that might be a good note to end on today.
Yes, and
There's
we
a
do
lot
have
to
small groups.
digest today.
We do have small groups, so we can just run right into those. Is that all right, John?
Exactly. I
Anything else
think that
before we
is
do
what
that?
we should do
Okay.
is just go straight into the small groups. And except that maybe we want to have